Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back. Our fourth and final episode of our NCAA FaceOff breakdown and preview. I'm here with Jerry Raganese. How are we feeling today, Jerry?
Oh, we ain't dead yet. We can't complain.
All right, that's the energy we're looking for. So we're going to look at the final two games of the first round bracket here. The first one we're going to go over is Denver versus Loyola. Denver has a two-man unit that they've been using. Stathakis is at 64%. He's taking 290 faceoffs, 107 ground balls. TD is at 70%. He's only taken 99 faceoffs. He has 46 ground balls. Then they're going against Bailey Savio, arguably the best faceoff man in Loyola history. He struggled a little bit early with the SNG, but he's kind of getting a little bit more ground going now. He's at 55%, and he's got 94 ground balls. Something to look for, like what jumps out at you, first thing to look for here?
I think looking at the body types of Stathakis and Savio, both bigger guys, jumping in, right? Savio is like what, 6?
But Savio, I think Bailey's like around the 5'11" area, but he's
big,
a strong dude.
He looks like he wears a 6 foot well. But again, like you're looking at a Alec who's he's 230, a big guy. So I'm interested to see kind of, you have the big, strong guy with Stathakis, and Savio is comfortable going against those bigger, stronger guys. And then you have an Erlin who's just in there with speed and throws his left hand. I'm interested to see if they're able to that two-headed monster that we've been talking about earlier. I'm interested to see if that wears Savio down, because again, Savio is a super athlete, very aggressive, comfortable with the ball on his stick. I'm very interested to see kind of how Denver approaches him, if they're going to try and wear him down early, or, if they're going to slow play, go out the back door so they don't have to match feet with them. I think there'll be a really interesting matchup come game day.
Yeah, and I agree. And something else to look into. So for people who don't know exactly what the lineup is or how things are looking here, when you look at the faceoff men in this situation, I think Stathakis is way more battle tested than TD with the SNG. Stathakis played against ACC teams early on. He held his own, and we have seen him steadily progress before TD got there. Once TD got there, TD looks like he's facing off on a knee, but standing neutral grip for all intents and purposes. Skill-wise, kind of rolls the wrist, he kicks the feet back and tries to rotate hard on you. And in fact, once he gets the clamp, he kind of drops to his knee to exit, as opposed to Stathakis, who's a little bit more deliberate with an SNG form. Still has a little bit of a kickback there. But he seems to be a little bit more having a handle on the SNG, and he's more battle tested. Since TD got there, Denver's schedule, they played Providence twice, Marquette, Villanova twice, and St. John's. When you look at the two games against Georgetown, that's kind of what I look at. I look at that because Riley is one of the better face-off guys in the Big East, and Stathakis handled it pretty well the first time they played. The second time they played, TD was on the team, and they both struggled against Riley, who was throwing in rakes and counters and was doing a very good job of keeping them both on their toes, which is actually supposed to work the opposite way. When you have two face-off guys, like we've said before with Notre Dame, one guy is deliberately a counter guy, one guy is a different style altogether with true plungers. It makes the singular face-off guy have to counter what they're doing and pay attention. But it looked like Riley had both of them on their heels. The first game that TD played, he was, I think, 11 for 11, and everyone was like, whoa, here we go. The second time they played Providence, which was the last game, RJ Romeo he played really well. They went 50% with him. But on the other hand, the second time TD played against Riley, he went 50%. Stathakis had a much better game. So it's interesting because I like that coach. You might look at the statistics and say, well, if TD's struggling, why are they still rotating reps? I think it's smart long-term, especially if you're winning the game, to keep those guys rotating, because it helps TD continue to catch up, because he's about 200 faceoffs behind Stathakis this year.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter how good you are. This, again, SNG is nothing like knee down. At the end of the day, yes, it's still facing off, but the mechanics are completely different. And again, TD was probably the last man in the pool, all things considered equal, because he did that. Yale didn't have any practices or anything like that, where other guys were getting together and, hey, the season's going on, we're going to get some reps, practice, et cetera, et cetera. Yale did nothing. So when he got onto campus, he was like, okay, let's do this thing. Doesn't matter how many guys you're meeting up with on the side. It's not the same as taking college officiated reps every single day in practice. So, I mean, again, love TD to death, nicest kid on earth. But he does have that is a significant amount of runway to have. Yeah. So, but again, I think that's a great 1-2 punch. You got Big Bad I still can't pronounce his name. You got Alec, who's Big Bad Man. You got Erlin, a living legend, getting into the ball again. He's still finding his groove. Hopefully he hits, his, what he thinks is great for him. But again, you have a Savio who is very comfortable countering, will play that left hand. But again,
what we have seen for Bailey Savio is he has gotten more comfortable. However, he'll get the lockups. And I feel like he's comfortable as TD is in rotating, kicking the feet back, kind of locking up for a little bit. Stathakis has gotten way better. And I think what separates him in this tournament in general is, once again, he's battle tested. He's taken, nearly 300 draws, but also he has learned that don't get into that rotational battle. So if Bailey Savio wants to get into a rotational battle, he's actually got a rare situation for him. A bigger guy than Bailey is going to go for that shovel counter and make you pay. So it's going to be interesting to see how Bailey combats that. When you look down the roster, there's not a lot of experience for Loyola. Pacheco's taken about 30 draws this year, but Bailey Savio has been a workhorse for 4 years. I'm still blown away that he wasn't drafted in the PLL. Somebody better bring that dude to camp. Because if you don't remember, Bailey was a world beater on a knee, and he'll jump right back to that, I'm assuming, if he goes to a PLL camp. But it's going to be a really cool matchup to watch either way. All right, our final matchup is Duke versus High Point. And the reason I love this matchup is because you have Naso, who could have arguably been, if it wasn't for his teammate, could have been considered as Rookie of the Year in the ACC. I feel like he's come on really well. He sticks to kind of one or two things, and he does them very, very well. If they're not working, then, they can go down their laundry list. I think, if we don't see Ginder, if Naso struggles, I'd be shocked if we don't see Ginder get a couple reps. We saw Duke the last time Naso had a little bit of trouble. They put Ginder in for like 2 or 3 faceoffs. And the idea behind that, a lot of people were like, what are they going to do? They're just going to mix and match and put. They went to him. They gave Naso a little chance to catch his breath and watch. And then they put him right back out there. And he did way better in the fourth quarter. So kudos to the Duke staff for using that. Coach Seth Tierney at Hofstra does the same thing with Brian Herbert. He doesn't kind of punish him for losing a couple faceoffs. If Brian loses 3, coach will take him out and he'll put Chase Patterson in until he loses. And it gives Herbert, he calls it a reset. It's not a punishment. We just want you to reset and watch the game for a little bit, see if there's anything you notice. Go out there with a clear head. So it seems to be that Coach Danowski and Caputo are taking the same approach with Naso. When you look at Naso, man, rookie year, first time doing SNG, 63%. He took 300 faceoffs as a rookie this year. And we were talking about it when we were doing our preview. They had 4 to 5 horses in that stable that could all be potential starters in the ACC. And the rookie came in and did a really good job. When you look at Naso, what is going to be the key to him being able to be a positive impact for Duke?
I think if you go back and look at that last UNC game, right, you're going to get to 2-headed monster, very athletic guys. They had a good game plan versus them, and they shut them down the first half. I mean, Naso struggled. And again, to your point where they gave him a break, it's not like, for the people out there listening, it's not like a goalie where you take a goalie out, put a new guy in, and that's who you're riding with the rest of the game. With faceoffs, I mean, you're only out. You don't have to stop the game to swap a guy out. It's after the faceoff, he comes off the field, and you can send out whoever you want. So giving these guys this rest. I mean, now that Naso sees that, oh no, I'm not. Especially as a freshman, you have to mature. Oh no, I'm not benched. My career's not over today. I'm okay. I can make mistakes, and they'll pull me out, and they have confidence in me. That is a huge wind on your back to have Coach Danowski and Coach Caputo pushing you, being behind your back rather than benching you in those situations. So he's free to make mistakes. And also Duke has again, like we said in the original video, they have a laundry list of guys, and they have a very talented Jordan Ginder, who is a world beater when he's out there. It's just Nazo's got the hot hand, and like you can't argue those stats as a freshman. You're taking 302 draws and 110 ground balls. Normally, when you have a freshman out there, a kid's not picking up that many ground balls. He's popping it to the wings, and he'll, even if you have that many attempts taken, he's probably in more like the 50, 60 ground balls. So that's what really jumps off the page for me there. But I think the really interesting thing is that nobody's talking about this high point unit. These guys have played each other. This is their fourth matchup.
I think this is the third time they're going to play each other this year.
Third or fourth time. That's a lot. You listen.
For an out-of-conference opponent, that's nuts.
Yeah.
I don't know what. I think we're getting them confused because I think they also played North Carolina.
That might be it. They might have played North Carolina. But these guys know each other. This is going to be a bloodbath because Davis St. Pierre is kind of hitting his stride. He had I believe an 80 or 90% day at his last game. And Davis is a guy who's very happy just to counter you all day. And then you got Hoban as well in there, who's also, comfortable with the ball in his stick, 54% guy, 82 of 152. So, I mean, again, you got kind of a two-headed monster versus a guy who has a hot hand, but he knows he's got relief. And High Point's offense has been rolling. And I mean, I don't want to say it's anybody's game. I know obviously Duke is heavily favored, but if they can control the stripe, I mean, it might be a much closer game than anybody's expecting.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I just checked the stats real quick. So it's fascinating because they played North Carolina, they scrimmaged North Carolina, then they played them twice, then they played Duke. So that's why it seems like they've been stuck in that area of Carolina all spring. But the one time that they played Duke this year, Colin Hoban was 10 for 18. And I remember watching that game because he did a great job of mixing his shovel counters with his true plunger. Davis St. Pierre destroyed Richmond in the SoCon championship game. Davis is a fifth-year senior. He's a guy who's been around a long time. I wouldn't be surprised if he went into coaching after he graduates because he understands his position very well. And he's the guy, he's been a selfless guy his whole career at High Point. He has no problem going out there and saying, look, Colin, I will handle the rakes and shovels, trying to keep them off balance. You take care of what you do, which is true plunger. But Colin could also counter, and he does a very good job of hiding it. Last time, Hoban was 10 for 18, but here's the fascinating thing. Last time they played, Dan O'Connell went 13 for 23. He's the one who took the most draws. And this is when we talk about a luxury of having this many guys. Dan O'Connell was like fourth in the country in faceoff percentage last year, transfers over to Duke. He was, I think, a third team or honorable mention All-American last year. Then you have Jordan Ginder, who we both agree could be an All-American if he got the time and chance. But then you have Naso, who has All-American potential in front of him. You also have Brian Smith, who was All-Tournament one year, and he's just a wing now. And then you also have Joe Stein, who whenever he's called upon, goes in and crushes it. So they have a whole bunch of guys. The question is can they limit that depth chart to like two guys, maybe three, to make sure no one gets confused? Does everybody know their role? Whereas High Point, they go into games knowing exactly what their role is. So Hoban has to be confident on the last game. However, he's not seeing Dan O'Connell 23 times this weekend. Guarantee it. Naso's coming out there. Naso was 2 for 4 last time around. When I watch film, I would think St. Pierre would be a good battle for Naso because he's so strong and good at counters. Whereas Naso kind of rolls that wrist and snaps over it, and he's either going forward or he's pulling it back door. So it'll be interesting to see if High Point sits on that back corner, because that's what Notre Dame did the second time around against Duke. They sat on that non-draw side wing and they cut in and they dared Naso to go back door because it's really tough to get it forward to your non-draw side wing. So they basically hedged their bet. So it'll be interesting if High Point takes that game plan. But I do think that they are, even though you might look at them and say, oh, it's about 50% these two guys, they're very well equipped for this, and they're super battle tested because they've been playing ACC teams pretty much the whole season.
Yeah, I completely agree. Though that ACC gauntlet they ran through has them ready for this. I think that's the biggest thing here. You're playing these juggernauts. You're not just coming out of your normal conference and out of conference schedule where you may see one of those guys. They've been playing these guys all season, so it's not like you're going to roll up and be starstruck by Brendan O'Neill. Who cares? That's kind of how this team has been rolling in there. But again, completely agree with the Hope and Davis kind of Notre Dame kind of take. If you take that backdoor exit away from Naso, he has struggled this year because no one's going to if you don't let him go forward by using your body, he's only been throwing it out the back. And if you can match feet with the Duke wings, which is a challenge in itself, I think High Point will be able to kind of reel these guys in a little bit.
Yeah. And I think that style that Naso uses, the rolled wrist, only allows him to then pop it on the ground. Yep. So even if you're cutting that off and he wants to be safe, he doesn't have the ability to come into the ball this way and roll it towards his face to pick it up because he's snapping. He can't pick it back up that way. So it'll be interesting. I also think, if I'm High Point, I'm looking at Brian Smith and I'm saying, let's pay attention to where he is on the wing, because as a faceoff guy, he's always sniffing the ball out. He knows where it's going to go ahead of time. It's a huge advantage on the wings when you're also a faceoff guy. It's not that different from going from wide receiver to cornerback. Knowing how the routes are run and what receivers are looking for, it gives you a whole different perspective on playing defense. Never played football. That's my assumption. So I'm just going to use that caveat. All right, cool. So those are the first round games. We are going to have these after every round. So we can't wait to see how this works out. Look for Jerry and I live tweeting throughout the game. Greg Beast 32 on Twitter and Instagram. Flogo 37 on Twitter and Instagram. And Jer, we're in for a good weekend. I can't wait, man.
Yeah, enjoy the games, guys.